I helped one of my clients build out their recruiting team to generate more engaged leads so that they can increase their revenue. So if you're just joining me right now, go into the comments. Let me know that you can hear me. Give me a like, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that we're good on the technical side. Today's story is really going to come from, I just finished up coaching a team literally yesterday, and I'm going to walk you through exactly what we did and what some of the results were that we saw because of that. So for those that you don't know me, or if this is the first time joining me live, my name is Donnie Gupton. I am a coach in the space. I help recruiters implement the relevant recruiter method to help them generate consistent leads, to drive more engaged leads, and to increase their revenue. Now, I help people with this by leveraging the power of personal branding, technology, automation, AI, and things along those lines. So everything that we talk about here is a little bit outside of the box of what the traditional recruitment, business development strategies are. So let's dive in. Riley, what's going on, man? Thank you for being here with me today and hanging with me live. Again, for those of you that are with me, if you can let me know that you're here, I would appreciate that. Give a little likes and love, that gets a little bit more reach. And one of the things, as I go throughout this presentation, feel free to ask any questions that you have. So let's go ahead and dive in. So this firm that I was working with was a small recruiting team. They had a team of 4 total individuals. They were focused in the accounting and finance space, and they were focused in a very specific geography. And so when we first started working together, some of their challenges were ultimately overall just a lack of a consistent machine. So they didn't have a consistent process in place to help them with their business development efforts. Okay. And I think this is a common challenge. And because of that, all of their business development efforts were all manual outreach. Everything was one-to-one. So they definitely weren't leveraged as a team. And so when you learn what's out there and you can really leverage your team, everybody can become more productive and more efficient with this type of a process. Okay. Nobody needs to know this, but there's intense competition out there, as I'm sure you guys are well aware of. And, with that intense competition, differentiation between you and the next, staffing and recruiting firm is really, really challenging. And I'd be curious, go into the comments, let me know if you guys have a challenge differentiating yourself, because I think that's something that's very, very challenging. There's no barrier to entry to become a recruiter. I could essentially tomorrow put on a hat and say that I'm a recruiter and you have to compete against me. And this was some of the challenges that this team was facing. And so because there was really no marketing system in place, they had no brand awareness. And so essentially, this is one of the common challenges that I help recruiting agencies overcome, is they were actually really, and they are really good at recruiting. They're an executive search firm, actually focused in the accounting and finance space. So that part was really, really good. And I don't help people. I'm not a recruiter. I don't help recruiters recruit better, but I help them leverage themselves and generate inbound leads by mastering some different things. And so, that common challenge, I think, is where a lot of the frustration lied with this firm, is they were really good at what they did, but they didn't know how to amplify that message and put themselves out there anymore. They didn't know how to explain how they were different. And so essentially they were kind of just resting on their reputation. They're $1 million firm. They were doing well, but they wanted more. And so here's exactly, what we did for them. And I'd be curious, again, if you guys have experienced any of those challenges, overwhelmed with, how you differentiate yourself, not a real proven business development system in place, no real marketing system in place. So there's really no brand awareness going on. But ultimately, you've done a really good job as a recruiter. You do that function really good. You just need more people to know about that. I'd be curious if you guys go in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are about that. So let's talk about how we kind of, revamp this thing. And one of the things I want to talk about is like, what is a lead first? Okay. Because that's thrown around. I throw it around. That's kind of my lead generation. A lead is just essentially, the ability to have a conversation with somebody, right? So technically, if we were going to break it down, like every time you make a LinkedIn connection and you grow your network, then that's a lead. You have the ability now to be in contact with somebody. But an engaged lead is what we really want, right? Is we want somebody who's actually responding to our outreach, reaching out because of our content efforts. That's an engaged lead. So, the whole purpose of what we're going to talk about today is actually how we were able to get them more engaged leads, people that were wanting to, talk with them, clients and candidates. So what we really did is we stripped everything down for them, and we really kind of got them refocused on what their target market was. And I talk about this a lot. So if you follow me a lot, this is like beating a dead horse, but I just can't drive home the importance, because I think what happens with a lot of recruiters, and especially as they go out on their own, they start to think about who they're going to target for business based off of what roles they can fill. And that, of course, makes logical sense. But when you're really getting into marketing and branding, and if you're really being strategic with your business development and marketing approach, then having a clear target market is essential. And so what that is actually flipping this on its head and making sure that you're appealing and you're most attractive to the ideal, clients or hiring decision makers within your market that you're trying to, get in front of. Okay. And so, hey, can you recruit, for example, could these people, fill pretty much any CFO role? Yeah, they could. Okay. But what we did is we really found a sweet spot for them that, was more kind of small to medium sized companies, was really where they wanted to position themselves. Could they help the Fortune 100? Yes. Could they help that really small, mom and pop shop? Yes. But we started to get them clarity on who they were going to exist for, and pick that small to medium size type company. Now, once you understand the company, then, what are all the probable hiring decision makers, that you can interact with, because there's not a playbook, there's not a magical formula with any company that you're reaching out to that says, hey, when you're reaching out, this is the ideal person that you need to go to. Every organization has their own. So what we do is we blanket. So in accounting and finance, we might go after the CFO, we might go after the controller, we might go after the senior VP of finance, for example. And then we might even also include, the chief operating officer, the CEO, maybe even some people in the human resources department. But what our belief is actually getting in front of the person who actually has the issue or the challenge, because these positions are open. And a lot of times that's not HR. HR is trying to fill multiple roles across multiple disciplines. But, they're not, for example, the CFO that can't keep up with his budget because he doesn't have the right team members on. And that CFO feels that pain. If we get ourselves in front of that CFO, we're going to get a lot more traction. So again, we rebuilt the target market. Then we really got clarity on who the actual hiring decision makers are from that market. And then when we know that, okay, that if you do any of these other steps before that, then you're probably not going to really connect with your audience, because you don't know who you're trying to connect to. So once you understand who you're trying to serve and where you're going to try to make your impact, now you go try to differentiate yourself. Now you start to work on, your differentiation statements, your unique selling proposition. And that's exactly what we did with this firm. And so once we understood that core target market, then we started to craft how we're different. And here's what I recommend for you guys to do this. And you can just do this right now while we're on this, is write down, first off, just write down a list of everything. But the goal is really to kind of land on 3 things that you feel strongly about that truly makes you different. So in order to do this, it requires a little bit of competitive research. We can't know how we're trying to be different if we don't know what our competition and what they're trying to do. So ultimately, after you do a little bit of competitive research and you build out your list of the things that you think make you different, then what you want to do is actually kind of try to land on 3. And if you have 3 kind of uniques to support your overall positioning statement. So for example, it could be, in this situation, the things that this company made them different is, 1, they were actually geographically focused in helping these types of companies grow. So that was a part of their differentiation. 2 is they're all former accountants turned recruiters. So that was a big part of their differentiation as well. And 3, one of the things is they have a formula and system in place that saves their clients time. And so that's how they really wanted to position themselves in the market, is that they really understood, the experience that their client was having, because they've actually sat in that seat. They understand the geography and the unique challenges because they live in that geography and that's where they focus. And then 3, this overall process and their value add is they're going to save these organizations time while building out robust teams. Okay, so that's the next step is really building out that differentiation. Okay, so once you have these things locked in, okay, then the big challenge that any small business faces, not just exclusive to the recruiting industry, is just purely obscurity. Is there enough people in your market that know that you exist? Okay, and so it is our job to be good at leveraging ourselves in order to make more people aware that we exist. And if you're the owner of a firm, this is 100% your responsibility, unless you've got a nice built out sales team, right? But even still, driving, the way to drive more awareness and to solve my challenge of obscurity is through heavy direct outreach and prospecting, as well as having a very strong marketing strategy. So that's what we did next, is we started our prospecting strategy with this team. And so the first thing we did is we actually went into their existing LinkedIn network and engaged with every single connection that they have. And so that's one thing, hey, you can do this today. Like, go into your network, who are your ideal hiring decision makers, and then go out and start to message them. Now, here's where most people kind of get chopped off at the legs with this whole thing, is they go out and they try to sell, and people don't want to be sold to in LinkedIn. They just don't. They don't want to know. They actually don't want to know why you're unique and different yet. It's like me coming into your LinkedIn and saying, hey, I've got a car for sale. You want to buy it? And you're like, dude, I don't want to buy a car right now. Why are you even asking me this? So you lose their attention. And so, when we re-engage with their network, what we're doing is just asking a couple questions or dropping a sentence or two that's showing that we understand, the industry that we're going after. And so one of the basic things, one tip for you guys right away is, I don't know who's teaching this out there anymore, but man, I still see people connecting with me and then sending me paragraphs in my LinkedIn inbox. Guys, nobody's reading that, especially of cold prospects. So if you have like some type of outreach and you're sending like this big, long, verbose message, like, change it, cut it down 75%. And I guarantee you'll have an increased response rate. Nobody has enough time to read that in their day. Every time I see them, they just overwhelm me. There could be gold inside these messages. And so I think that's the thing that's important is, one, go after low hanging fruit that's in your network. But then two, rather than trying to sell them, try to get them into dialogue, right? So one of the easy ways to do that is, ask them about what's going on with their hiring efforts. Reach out on behalf of your candidates that you're doing a little bit of market research, trying to figure out what the pulse is. And, you want their expertise in this feedback. So, that was the first objective, is to go into their LinkedIn network. Now, right away, all four, and let me go back a step. Okay, so they actually had two folks focused mainly on recruiting, and then two folks focused mainly on more on the business development side. And so when we rolled this out, when we roll this out for a team, the cool thing about it is, if you have a couple of members, is we can A/B test off of that, right? We put together different messaging sequences in all of these profiles. Now, in this situation, everything won. In some one more than others, but we were able to get them to the point where they were dialed in and they had candidates that they were proactively reaching out to and growing their network with. They were already in dialogue with this type of an approach. And then same thing on the client side, they were able to get wins. So right away, within their first 30 days of us implementing the system, they already had leads and new contracts with people that were looking for right in their wheelhouse, right in their thing. So I can't drive home this enough, that like, so many people have the number one thing we want to do is really just take care of our network, take care of the people that already have some sort of awareness. And by just having a quality approach that focuses more on dialogue rather than focusing on selling, or focuses on adding value rather than focusing on selling, what we're able to do is we're actually able to build more of a pipeline up and get more engaged leads as a reason of this. Because especially in an economy like right now, where it's incredibly volatile, and you're reaching out in some situations, we don't know if companies are hiring or if they're not. And what the idea, in my opinion, should be is knowing that it's not the hottest economy. Like, I would want to play a long-term game right now. And so if I'm going out and I'm trying to constantly pitch and sell to everybody, I'm turning off every single person that's not hiring right now. And they're actually even wondering if you have any pulse on what's happening in the industry. But if I'm finding ways to get people into dialogue and asking questions and adding value to them at this point in time, then what happens is like I'm going to get more people that actually engage with my messaging, engage with what I have going on, and I can build that pipeline. So when their hiring need starts to arise here and this market, shifts or whatever happens, because it's crazy, I don't even know, then you become that obvious choice because you've captured their attention. Okay. So because we're able to do this with the team, what we did is we helped the team segment based off of company size and position title. So that way there was less crossover and they could blanket their market more. So for example, what this could look like is everybody on the team on the business development side was, connecting with CFOs, for example, and one person was connecting with CFOs from the company size of 200 to 500 filter, and the other one was connecting with company size of 500 to 1,000. So now they're still within their target market, but then they're spreading themselves, and they're doing it through their personal profiles, because people buy people, they don't buy logos anymore. And so when you're doing this prospecting strategy, you want to make sure that you dial in the LinkedIn profile and have all your messaging, have all your differentiation right there for your audience. Okay. And so again, focus on the target market, focus on the decision makers, all the ideal candidates from within that market, then build out differentiators that are going to really make yourself attractive to that specific audience. Take those differentiators, take that whole packaging, bring it to LinkedIn in your profile, make your profile sales page, get it to stand out so that your ideal prospects, when they come to your page, are like, oh, this person exists for me. Then we need to solve the obscurity challenge. Okay. So we want to re-engage with our network that we already have right now. That's our lowest hanging fruit. That's our warmest audience. Okay. Then from there, we want to have a plan to grow our network, and we want to do that strategically so that your team is able to spread, a wider net, but still being strategic. So that's where having different team members going after different hiring decision makers in different company sizes, for example, is a way you can blanket your market. Okay. And then on the recruiting side, it's the same thing. Maybe there's some candidates that you're always trying to proactively have in your network. Hey, connecting with the CFO, for example, is always a good idea if you're in the accounting and finance space. But you can really start to proactively grow your LinkedIn network with these types of clients and candidates, so that one, I can get into dialogue with them, into outreach. But then two, and this is kind of the next thing that we were able to get this company into, which is really just getting into the part where you start to, generate some consistent content. Okay. And so it's funny that I still have to kind of drive this home, but if you're not creating content, you're just leaving a ton of money on the table. Okay. It's not like hey, do this versus that. This is just where the market is going. This is where all the trends are at. And there's still people in this industry that are just fighting this, like with, holding on to dear life, that the only way that you can grow your business and recruiting is just by being on the phone and sell. So there's still a lot of opportunity for those of you that are willing to put yourself out there and build content marketing. Look, eventually your content efforts, if you do them right, your content efforts and your branding will surpass any type of outreach that you do. I do very limited outreach anymore with my business because my brand and my content generates so much activity for me. That didn't happen, for a long time. And this is the reason why most recruiting agencies don't do it, is because it's more of a long-term play. And so if you can put on that hat and you're really serious about your business, and you're not, you didn't just run your recruiting business to exist in, August 2023, then having a good content and branding strategy is an absolute must. And so what we were able to do is help them get consistent with their content by focusing on things that they're talking to about with their clients and candidates every day. And when you're doing that, then you're kind of really positioning yourself as a leader in the market. First and foremost, content and creating content now is easier than it's ever been. And so cutting through that noise is going to be more challenging than it's ever been, right? Because there's so many other options out there. So you have to really be serious about creating content, because, hey, that person can consume from you or can consume from somebody else. They do have choices. And so you have to really be consistent. You have to be committed to this process. And that's even more the reason why you need to have a specific niche, because it's going to be easier to kind of cut through the noise when you have an audience of people that know you exist for them. And in turn, you're just making it very clear that you're there, right? To be that to be that resource for them. Okay, so the content and that leadership part, again, I need to solve this challenge with my content of why should I listen to you? Well, the best way to do that is through something like this, right? You guys are all here listening to me because I have a proven track record where I've done this for several hundred recruiting firms now at this point. So, hey, I've got credibility. I'm not just telling you stuff. This isn't ideas. This isn't theories. This is what's actually working right now in the space. That's why you should listen to me. So why should I listen to you? And that's where client success, sharing stories, is all things that have to be a part of your content strategy. It's your job to drive your narrative. Okay. You also want to be kind of leading the market, and what should recruiting agencies be doing right now? Well, they should be doing something like this. So for example, what should your CFOs be doing if you're focused on accounting and finance recruiting? How can you lead your market? What are the trends and things like that? The next thing we help them do is really serve their market and add value. And this is where you kind of share your tips and your tricks and things like that. And this really puts a lot of goodwill into the marketplace and gets you to be viewed as a thought leader. And then the one thing that really kind of tipped us over the edge for them was when they started to kind of put some of their personal content out there. We call this the connection pillar, and this is the one that most people shy away from, especially on LinkedIn, because all these rules about not to be personal on LinkedIn. But the reality of it is like any brand out there that you know of, you know a little bit about what's going on in their personal life. That's just a part of why we connect with people. It's what we've always done. And so who are you? Tell me about that. You can watch this video. You can probably understand maybe I like a little bit of football. I don't know. You're getting to know who I am, what I'm about, just by, where we're at. That builds human connection, right? That saves so much rapport on the sales and marketing calls. Okay. And so why would I do it content again? Well, first off, if you do it right, in time, you're going to generate inbound leads from it, right? Which means that somebody's going to watch a video like this, for example, and then they're going to reach out and say, hey, Donnie, I want to learn about XYZ. And so we want to be able to create something similar for you. But the big thing, and this is where I think a lot of people don't see the bigger vision, is marketing supports everything else that you do. And so when you're building content and you're doing this properly, you actually will get increased responses on all of your outreach, because now there's awareness of who you are and who your team members are, rather than just being another recruiter in the inbox. And so that's why you want to, be able to tell this narrative and tell this story, is because other recruiters are already doing this. They're standing out amongst the competition. And then when somebody's, getting a reach out from them, they're actually excited about it because there's a little bit of a brand about this person. It's not just some, another random recruiter. And again, I say this, guys, because I know there's a lot of you that are listening right now that probably feel like you're really, really good at what you do. You probably really are really good at what you do. Yet you're just probably stuck and frustrated because you have to compete against that junior person that just got out of college last week and threw on his recruiting hat. We got to solve that problem for you. Okay. So before we wrap this thing up, go into the comments there. Let me know if you guys have any questions, ideas, thoughts. I would love to hear from you here. Again, what I shared with you today is exactly how I'm helping recruiting firms win right now in this economy. And if you are serious about your recruiting business and you don't have systems like this in play, if you don't have, a way to differentiate yourself, then we need to talk. If you are not leveraging your desk and you're not automating your prospecting and outreach, then we need to talk. If you're not including direct manual outreach with your automation and doing it strategically, we need to talk. And if you don't have a content strategy and a brand that's driving revenue for your business, then we need to talk. So this is Donnie Gupton. Drop a comment below if you're interested in having a conversation, or just continue to consume this lovely content. This podcast will be on my YouTube channel, so you can go to my YouTube, Donnie Gupton, or the Relevant Recruiter Show, which is on all major podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify, etc. So, hey, if you're ready for the call and you're one of those types of people who likes to take action and take their life in their own hands, let's do that right now. Go to donniegupton.com/calendar, set up a time, or drop a message or send me a direct message here. If you're not ready for that, then go to my YouTube channel, start checking out some of those other videos that I have there. And I also have some other formal trainings I can drop your way. I love to add value to this space in this industry. So thank you guys for being here with me today. We'll see you next week on another live episode of the Relevant Recruiter Show. Gonna have my buddy Mark Wilson here telling his story.